Dr. Hannah Kim knelt beside her daughter in the observation deck of the research vessel. New soul. 8-year-old Nari pressed her face against the thick glass window, watching the stars drift by like diamonds scattered across black silk. "Mama, when will we reach the new planet?" Nari asked, her breath fogging the glass. 3 more days, little one, Hannah replied, brushing a strand of dark hair from her daughter's face. "The scanners show it has forests and lakes." "Finally. Build that treehouse you keep talking about." Nari bounced with excitement. "Can we make it big enough for both of us?" "Of course we can." The new soul carried 1,500 colonists to establish the first human settlement in the Kepler sector. As the ship's chief xenobiologist, Hannah has spent months preparing for their new home. Sia studied every detail about the planet's ecosystem, its weather patterns, its potential for supporting human life. Everything seemed perfect. She should have been studying the space around their ship instead. The attack came without warning during the 3rd shift, when most colonists were asleep. Hannah jerked awake to the sound of alarms screaming through the corridors. Red emergency lights bathed everything in an angry glow. "All hands to battle stations." Captain Lee's voice crackled through the intercom. "We are under attack, Kess. This is not a drill." Hannah grabbed Nari, who was still rubbing sleep from her eyes. "What's happening, Mama?" "I don't know, baby, but we need to get to the emergency pods." They ran through corridors filled with panicked colonists. Children cried as their parents carried them toward the escape routes. Emergency doors sealed themselves with heavy mechanical sounds. The ship shuddered as something powerful struck its hull through the corridor windows. Hannah saw them for the first time. The alien ships were massive, dark things that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They moved with predatory grace, surrounding the new soul like wolves circling prey. Strange energy weapons carved through the human ship's defenses as if they were made of paper. "Mama, I'm scared," Nari whispered, clutching her mother's hand. "It's going to be okay," Hannah lied, pulling her daughter toward the nearest emergency station. They almost made it. The corridor head exploded inward as something cut through the hull. Air rushed out through the breach, creating a hurricane of debris and screaming wind. Emergency force fields activated, but they were already too late. Through the hole in the ship came the invaders. Hannah had never seen anything like them. The aliens stood 7 feet tall on 4 legs that ended in razor-sharp claws. Their skin was dark purple and covered in natural armor plates. Most terrifying were their faces, which held too many eyes and mouths filled with teeth like broken glass. One of them raised a weapon that looked like a net made of lightning. The energy web expanded as it flew, catching a group of colonists who screamed as electricity coursed through their bodies. They collapsed, unconscious but alive. "Specimens," one of the aliens said in perfect human language. "Take the young ones first. They adapt better." Hannah realized with horror that this wasn't a random attack. These creatures had been planning this. They knew about humans. They knew about the colony ship. They had been waiting. "Run," she whispered. To Nari, then louder, "Run." But there was nowhere to go. The aliens moved with mechanical efficiency, herding the colonists like cattle. More energy nets flew through the air, catching families as they tried to escape. Parents fell protecting their children, only to watch helplessly as the aliens dragged their young away. Hannah tried to shield Nari behind her body, but one of the aliens had already spotted them. It approached with deliberate steps, its multiple eyes focused on the small girl. "Excellent specimen," it said, raising its weapon. "Young female, healthy, perfect for the programs." "No," Hannah said, stepping between the alien and her daughter. "You can't have her." The alien tilted its head like a curious bird. "You will not interfere with the collection. I'm her mother." "Oh, I won't let you take her, mother," the alien repeated, as if testing the word. Irrelevant. You have no authority here. It raised what looked like a metal rod. Blue energy crackled along its length. Step aside or be removed. Hannah didn't move. She couldn't. Every instinct in her body screamed at her to fight, to protect her child, to do something. What could she do against these creatures with their advanced weapons and armor? Please, she said, hating how her voice shook. She's just a child. Take me instead. The alien struck her with the rod. Pain exploded through her nervous system like liquid fire. She collapsed, her body convulsing as electricity coursed through her muscles. Through the haze of agony, she heard Nari screaming her name. Mama, Mama, get up. Hannah tried to reach for her daughter, but her body wouldn't obey. The neural disruptor had paralyzed her completely. She could only watch as the alien wrapped Nari in an energy net. Don't hurt her, Hannah gasped, tasting blood in her mouth. Please, don't hurt her. The alien ignored her. It lifted Nari easily, carrying her toward the breach in the hull. Other aliens followed, herding their captured colonists like a grotesque parade. Mama, Nari cried, tears streaming down her face. Don't let them take me. I won't, Hannah whispered, but her voice was too weak for anyone to hear. I promise, I won't. The aliens disappeared through the hole in the ship, taking their prisoners with them. The emergency force fields sealed the breach, cutting off Hannah's view of the alien vessels as they departed. She lay on the cold metal floor, paralyzed and broken, listening to the sounds of the dying ship around her. Emergency systems failed one by one. The lights dimmed. The air grew thick with smoke and the smell of burning electronics. But none of that mattered. Nothing mattered except the promise she had made to her daughter as feeling slowly returned to her limbs. Hannah Kim began to plan. The aliens had made a mistake. They had taken her child, but they had left her alive. Kay clearly didn't understand what they had done. They had created an enemy who would never stop hunting them. They had angered a human mother, and they would learn that some mistakes could never be undone. The rescue ships arrived 2 days later, but by then, Hannah had already begun her transformation from scientist to something much more dangerous. She had begun to study her enemies, to learn their weaknesses, to plan her revenge. The universe had laws about war crimes between civilizations, but Hannah Kim was no longer thinking like a civilized person. She was thinking like a mother whose child had been stolen. And that was something the universe had never learned to regulate. Part 2. The preparation 3 days after the attack. Hannah Kim sat in the medical bay of the rescue ship watching news reports about the raid on the New Sol. The reporters called it a tragedy. The Galactic Council called it a violation of interstellar law. Captain June Park of the Peacekeeping Force called it a complex diplomatic situation. None of them called it what it really was, the theft of her daughter. Captain Park said, entering the medical bay with a data pad in his hands. I need to ask you some questions about the attack. Hannah looked up from her tablet, where she had been reading everything she could find about the aliens who had taken Nari. They called themselves the Vector, she said before he could speak. They knew about our ship. They knew about the colony mission. This wasn't random. Park nodded grimly. Our intelligence agrees. The Vector Empire has been raiding colony ships for decades. They take prisoners and sell them as slaves on black markets across the galaxy. What are you doing to get them back? We're filing formal complaints with the Galactic Council. The Vector have violated 17 different articles of the Warfare Convention. There will be consequences. Hannah set down her tablet. How long will that take? These things are complex. The legal process could take months, maybe years, but justice will be served. Years. Hannah's voice was very quiet. My daughter will be dead in years. Dr. Kim, I understand your frustration, but we have to follow proper procedures. We can't just attack a sovereign empire without going through the proper channels. Why not? Park looked surprised by the question. 'Cause that's not how civilized societies handle disputes. We have laws, we have treaties, we have diplomatic processes. And while we're being civilized, children are being sold like animals. I'm sorry, Dr. Kim. I truly am, okay? But my hands are tied by regulations and protocols, okay? After Park left, Hannah returned to her research. She had spent her entire career studying alien biology, but now she was learning about something much more dangerous. She was learning about the Vector Empire itself. The information was disturbing. The Vector had been raiding less advanced civilizations for over 2 centuries. They had perfected the art of capturing and breaking prisoners. Their entire economy was built on slavery, and they had never been successfully prosecuted because they were careful to only attack species that weren't members of the Galactic Council. But they had made one mistake. They had taken human children. "You look terrible," a voice said behind her. Hannah turned to see Tae-woo approaching her table in the ship's mess hall. The engineer had been working on the new Soul's power systems when the attack happened. His 12-year-old son, Dong, had been taken along with the other children. "I can't sleep," Hannah admitted. "Every time I close my eyes, I see her face when they took her." Tae sat down across from her. "I know the feeling, but sitting here reading about the Vector won't bring them back. Maybe not, but it's teaching me things." "Like what?" Hannah showed him her tablet screen. "The Vector respect only strength. Their entire society is based on the idea that might makes right. They take prisoners because they see other species as weak. So they've never met humans who refuse to be weak." Tae studied her face carefully. "What are you thinking, Hannah?" "I'm thinking that Captain Park is right about one thing. We can't attack a sovereign empire, but I'm not an empire. I'm not even a government. I'm just a mother looking for a daughter." "That's crazy. You're a scientist, not a soldier." "I'm a xenobiologist who has spent 15 years studying alien physiology. I know more about non-human biology than most people in the galaxy. Okay. Right now, I'm learning everything I can about Vector weaknesses." Tae leaned forward. "You're serious about this? Deadly serious? Then you'll need help." Over the next week, Hannah and Tae began planning what they privately called a rescue mission. Officially, they were helping other survivors deal with trauma and loss. Unofficially, they were building weapons. The rescue ship had extensive machine shops for repairs and maintenance. Tae used his engineering skills to modify mining equipment into something much more dangerous. Plasma cutters became beam weapons. Gravity manipulators became force projectors. Construction robots became mechanical soldiers. Meanwhile, Hannah studied every scrap of information about Vector biology she could find. She learned about their nervous systems, their respiratory processes, their reproductive cycles. Most importantly, she learned about their weaknesses. "Their exoskeletons are strong but brittle," she explained to Tae as they worked late one night. "The right frequency of sound can shatter them like glass, and their nervous systems are extremely sensitive to electromagnetic fields. Can you build something that exploits those weaknesses?" "Already working on it." Dr. Myra Song found them in the workshop 3 days later. The ship's counselor had been checking on survivors, trying to help them process their trauma. What she found instead was 2 people who had moved far beyond trauma into something much more dangerous. "This has to stop," Myra said, looking at the modified weapons spread across the workbench. "This isn't healing, it's madness." "This is necessity," Hannah replied, not looking up from the frequency generator she was calibrating. "You're talking about committing murder. I'm talking about getting my daughter back. The Galactic Council will handle this through proper channels." "Galactic Council," Hannah said, finally looking up, "doesn't have children being tortured by aliens right now." "I do." Mira tried a different approach. Think about what you're becoming. You're letting anger consume you. This isn't who you are. Right? Hannah said calmly. This isn't who I was, but it's who I need to be. She turned back to her work. Okay. The Vector made a mistake when they took human children. Okay. They assumed we would follow their rules, accept their strength, submit to their authority. Okay. They don't understand that humans have something they lack. What's that? We have parents who will burn down the universe to protect their children. Mira left the workshop, shaking her head. She filed a report with Captain Park, recommending that Hannah be placed under psychiatric observation. But by the time Park read the report, Hannah and Tay had already disappeared. They had stolen a small cargo ship and vanished into the vast darkness between stars. All they left behind was a message. We have gone to collect our children. Galactic Council is welcome to file a complaint. Park stared at the message for a long time. Then he deleted it from the ship's records. Some things, he decided, were better left undocumented in the depths of space. Akana, Kim piloted her stolen ship toward Vector territory. Her cargo hold was filled with weapons that existed in no military manual. Her computer contained detailed plans for infiltrating an alien empire. But most importantly, her heart contained a promise she had made to her daughter. She was coming, and nothing in the universe would stop her. The Vector processing station on Keth Prime was a nightmare made of metal and darkness. From her hiding spot on a nearby asteroid, Hannah Kim watched through her ship's sensors as cargo vessels arrived and departed like deadly insects around a hive. That's where they took them, Tae-woo said, studying the scanner readings. The slave processing center for this entire sector. Hannah nodded, her eyes never leaving the massive structure. The station was built like a fortress, with energy shields and weapon platforms protecting every approach. Any military force would need a full fleet to assault it directly. Good thing she wasn't a military force. The outer defenses are designed to stop large ships, she said, pointing to weak spots in the sensor data. But they're not watching for single-person infiltration, 'cause nobody would be crazy enough to try it. Nobody except a human mother. Hannah had spent 2 weeks tracking the Vector slave convoy through 3 different star systems. Her stolen cargo ship looked like just another trading vessel, allowing her to follow at a safe distance while gathering intelligence. What she learned made her blood run cold. The Vector didn't just capture slaves. They processed them, sorted them, broke them down into categories based on their usefulness. Adults went to labor camps. The elderly went to medical experimentation facilities. Children went to something called the adaptation program. Hannah didn't want to think about what that meant. How do we get inside? Tay asked. We don't, Hannah replied. I go alone. That's suicide, okay? But if we both go and fail, who will tell the story, okay? Who will make sure the galaxy knows what happened here? Tay wanted to argue, but he knew she was right. The mission was dangerous enough with 1 person. 2 would just double the chances of failure. Hannah spent the next day preparing. She loaded her body with the frequency generators and electromagnetic pulse devices she had built. Her modified medical scanner could detect Vector life signs through their station's walls. Most importantly, she carried vials of the biological weapon she had designed specifically for Vector physiology. Remember, she told Tay as she prepared, to leave if I don't come back in 72 hours. Send all our data to every news network in the galaxy. Make sure everyone knows what the Vector are doing. You'll come back, Tay said. You have to. I'll come back with the children, or I won't come back at all. Hannah launched herself toward the station in a modified escape pod, using the gravitational field of Keth Prime to mask her approach. The pod's hull was coated with sensor-absorbing materials that made it nearly invisible to Vector detection systems. The first challenge was getting through the outer hull. The station's armor was designed to stop energy weapons and explosives, but it wasn't built to resist the specialized cutting tools Hannah had developed. Her plasma cutter, modified with frequency generators, sliced through the alien metal like a hot knife through butter. She squeezed through the gap to a maintenance corridor filled with pipes and cables. The air was thick and humid, smelling of chemicals and something else she didn't want to identify. Alien voices echoed from nearby passages. Hannah moved like a ghost through the station's service tunnels. Her medical scanner showed dozens of Vector life signs throughout the facility, but she avoided them all. She wasn't here to fight guards. She was here to find children. The first security checkpoint nearly ended her mission before it began. The Vector guards stood at the entrance to the main processing area, their weapons ready, crouched in the shadows, studying their positions. She could have used her weapons to kill them, but that would have raised alarms. Instead, she activated one of her most clever inventions, a sonic frequency generator tuned specifically to Vector neural patterns. The high-pitched sound was inaudible to human ears, but it hit the aliens like a physical blow. They stumbled, clutching their heads as their nervous systems overloaded. Within seconds, they collapsed unconscious. Hannah stepped over their bodies and continued deeper into the station. The processing center was worse than she had imagined. Rows of holding cells stretched as far as she could see, filled with beings from dozens of different species. Humans, aliens she recognized from council records, and creatures she had never seen before. All of them were prisoners. All of them were waiting to be sold. She found the children in a separate section, heavily guarded and isolated from the adult prisoners. Hannah's heart nearly stopped when she saw them. Dozens of human children, including several from the New Soul, sat in small cells designed to break their spirits. But she didn't see Nari. "Where are the special subjects?" she heard a Vector voice ask from around the corner. "Sublevel 5, another replied. "The ones marked for the adaptation program." Hannah's blood turned to ice. The adaptation program was real, and her daughter was part of it. She made her way to the lower levels, leaving a trail of unconscious guards behind her. The sonic frequency generators worked perfectly, dropping Vector warriors without raising any alarms. Their own nervous systems were betraying them, and they didn't even know why. Sublevel 5 was different from the rest of the station. The walls were covered with medical equipment and monitoring devices. The air smelled of antiseptic and fear. Hannah found the laboratory at the end of a long corridor. Through the transparent walls, she could see dozens of examination tables, each one equipped with restraints and monitoring equipment. Some of the tables were occupied. Her daughter was on the third table from the left. Nari looked smaller than Hannah remembered, pale and weak from whatever the Vector had done to her. But she was alive, and that was all that mattered. Hannah was about to enter the laboratory when she heard footsteps behind her. She turned to find a massive Vector warrior, bigger than any she had seen before. His armor was decorated with rank insignia that marked him as a commander. "So," he said in perfect human language, "the little human has come to rescue her offspring." "Commander Vexstar, cool," Hannah replied, recognizing him from the intelligence reports. "I've been looking for you. Have you? How interesting." "Most humans would be terrified to meet me. I'm not most humans." Cole studied her with all 6 of his eyes. "No, you are not. You are the one who has been disabling my guards. Very clever, using our own biology against us. I'm a scientist. I study weaknesses. And what weakness do you think you have found?" "In me?" Hannah smiled, and for the first time in weeks, it was genuine. "The same weakness every predator has. You assume your prey is helpless." She activated every frequency generator on her body at once. The sound hit cool like a physical blow, but his larger size and rank armor protected him from the worst effects. He stumbled, but didn't fall. "Clever," he gasped, raising his weapon, "but not clever enough." "You're right," Hannah said. The sonic weapons were just a distraction. She threw the biological weapon at his feet. The vial shattered, releasing a fine mist that Cool breathed in before he could react. "What have you done?" he demanded. "Huh, I've given you a choice," Hannah replied calmly. "Kay, you can tell me where all the human children are being held, or you can die slowly as your nervous system shuts down." Cool tried to raise his weapon, but his hands were already shaking. "You, cannot do this. There are laws. It's laws about warfare between civilizations." Hannah agreed, "But I'm not a civilization, kid. Just a mother who wants her daughter back." The interrogation took less than 10 minutes. By the end, Hannah knew the location of every human prisoner in the facility, the access codes to all the security systems, and the schedule for the next slave transport. She also knew something else. Something that made her blood run cold. The children weren't just being sold as slaves. They were being used as test subjects for biological weapons. The Vector Empire was planning a war against the Galactic Council, and they needed to know how different species would react to their weapons. As Commander Cool collapsed, paralyzed by her biological agent, Hannah looked through the laboratory windows at her daughter. "I'm here, baby," she whispered. "Mama's here, and we're going home." But first, she had work to do. The Vector had made a mistake when they decided to experiment on human children. They were about to learn that some mistakes could never be forgiven. Hannah Kim entered the laboratory with trembling hands. The room was filled with medical equipment she didn't recognize, strange machines that hummed with alien energy. But none of that mattered. All she could see was the small figure lying on the examination table. "Nari," she whispered, rushing to her daughter's side. The 8-year-old girl was unconscious, her breathing shallow and weak. Strange marks covered her arms where the Vector had inserted monitoring devices. Her skin was pale, almost gray. She looked like she had lost weight. Hannah quickly checked her daughter's vital signs with her medical scanner. The readings made her heart sink. Nara's body was fighting some kind of infection, and her immune system was barely functioning. "What did they do to you, baby?" Hannah asked, carefully removing the alien monitoring devices. As she worked, she noticed something else. The laboratory wasn't just equipped for medical experiments. It was designed for biological weapons research. The computers contained detailed files about different species and their reactions to various toxins and diseases. Hannah accessed the nearest computer terminal using the codes she had forced from Commander Cool. What she found made her stomach turn. Vector had been testing dozens of different biological weapons on their prisoners. They wanted to find the most effective way to kill or control different species. The children were perfect test subjects because their developing immune systems showed clearer reactions to the toxins. "They're monsters," she said, quietly, reading through file after file of test results. But then she found something worse. The research wasn't just about enslaving other species. The Vector were planning to use these weapons in a massive war against the Galactic Council. They wanted to conquer the entire galaxy, and they were using captured children to develop the weapons that would make it possible. "Mama." Hannah spun around to find Nari's eyes open, looking at her with confusion and hope. "I'm here, sweetheart," Hannah said, gathering her daughter into her arms. "I'm here, and I'm going to take you home." "I knew you would come," Nari whispered, her voice barely audible. "I told the other kids that my mama would find us." "The other kids? They're in the next room. Some of them are really sick. The purple aliens keep giving us shots that make us feel bad." Hannah's jaw tightened. She helped Nari sit up slowly, checking to make sure she could walk. The girl was weak but mobile. "Can you be brave for me, baby? We need to help the other children. I can be brave." Together, they moved to the next laboratory. What Hannah found there filled her with rage that threatened to overwhelm her carefully controlled emotions. 23 human children from the New Soul were strapped to examination tables, each one connected to machines that monitored their biological responses. Some of the children were awake, staring at the ceiling with empty eyes. Others were unconscious, their bodies fighting the effects of whatever the Vector had injected into them. All of them showed signs of prolonged medical experimentation. "We have to get them out of here," Hannah said, moving from table to table and checking each child. "How?" Nari asked. "There are too many guards." "Not anymore," Hannah replied grimly. "I've been removing guards on my way here." She began disconnecting the medical equipment from each child, working as quickly as possible. Her scanner showed that several of them were in critical condition. They needed real medical care, not the biological weapons testing they had been subjected to. As she worked, Hannah continued accessing the Vector computer systems. The more she learned, the angrier she became. The research data showed that the aliens had been perfecting their biological weapons for decades, accusing prisoners from hundreds of different species. But the human children were special. Their immune systems were adapting to the toxins in ways the Vector had never seen before. Some of the children were actually developing resistance to the biological weapons. This made them even more valuable as test subjects. "They're trying to learn how to kill us," Hannah realized. "They want to know exactly what it takes to destroy human immunity." She copied all the research data onto her portable storage device. The galaxy needed to know what the Vector were planning. This wasn't just about slavery anymore. It was about genocide. "Some of the kids can't walk," Nari said. Trying to help a boy who was barely conscious, Hannah looked around the laboratory at the 23 children she needed to save. Many of them were too weak to move on their own. Even with anti-gravity stretchers, she couldn't possibly carry them all to her ship. She needed help. "Tay," she said, activating her communication device. "Need you to bring the ship to the station. Docking Bay 7. "Are you insane?" Tay's voice crackled through the static. "That's suicide. The station's defenses will destroy us. Not if I disable them first." "How?" Hannah looked at the computer terminals around her, then at the children who were depending on her. "I'm going to turn their own systems against them." She began hacking into the station's central computer network, using her knowledge of Vector technology to bypass their security systems. The process was dangerous and time-consuming, but she had learned enough about their technology to make it work. First, she disabled the external weapon systems. Then, she opened the docking bay doors. Finally, she began uploading a virus into their communication systems that would prevent them from calling for help. "The station's defenses are down," she told Tay. "You have maybe 10 minutes before they figure out what's happening." "On my way." While she waited, Hannah continued reading the research files. What she found made her realize that this rescue mission was bigger than just saving her daughter. The Vector were planning to attack human colonies across the galaxy, using the biological weapons they had developed from their experiments. "Okay, we're not just saving these children," she said to herself. "We're saving our entire species." But then she found something that made her blood run cold. The research data showed that the Vector had already begun deploying their biological weapons. 3 human colonies had been attacked in the past month. The populations had been wiped out by engineered diseases. The war had already begun. The galaxy just didn't know it yet. "I have to stop this," Hannah said, looking at the massive computer systems around her. "I have to make sure they can never use this research again." She began preparing the station's own biological weapons for release into the facility's air system. If she could contaminate the entire station with agents designed to kill Vector, she could eliminate their research capability and send a message to the rest of their empire. "Mama, what are you doing?" Nari asked, watching her mother work frantically at the computer terminals. "I'm making sure they can never hurt another child," Hannah replied. "But won't that make you like them?" Hannah paused, her hands hovering over the controls. Her daughter was right. Using biological weapons would make her no different from the monsters who had taken these children. But then she thought about the 3 human colonies that had already been destroyed. She thought about the hundreds of other species that had been enslaved and experimented on. She thought about the war that was coming. Sometimes, she said quietly, you have to become a monster to stop bigger monsters. She activated the contamination protocol. Alarms began blaring throughout the station as the biological agents spread through the air system. The same toxins the Vector had used to torture children were now being used against them. The ship is here. Tay's voice came through the communicator. But we've got problems. Vector reinforcements are on their way. Hana began loading the children onto anti-gravity stretchers, moving them toward the docking bay as quickly as possible. Some of them were awake now, crying for their parents or asking where they were going. You're going home, she told them. All of you are going home. As they reached the docking bay, Hannah took one last look at the laboratory that had been her daughter's prison. The biological weapons were spreading through the station, and the Vector were discovering that their own research could be turned against them. Justice, she said quietly, is what you get when a human mother decides you've hurt her child. The universe was about to learn that some lines should never be crossed. The explosion that destroyed the Vector research station lit up the darkness of space like a new star. From the bridge of their escape ship, Hannah Kim watched the facility tear itself apart as its own biological weapons consumed everything inside. That's going to be visible from 3 star systems, Tae Woo said, monitoring the sensor readings. Good, Hannah replied quietly. I want everyone to see it. Behind them in the medical bay, 24 human children were slowly recovering from their ordeal. Dr. Song worked frantically to treat the effects of the biological experiments, but all of them would survive. They were going home. Nari sat beside her mother on the bridge, still weak but alive. Mama, are the purple aliens all gone? The ones who hurt you are gone, Hannah said, stroking her daughter's hair. But there are others. And now they know what happens when they take human children. The communication system crackled to life. Unknown vessel. This is Captain June Park of the Galactic Council Peacekeeping Force. You were ordered to stop and prepare to be boarded. Hannah activated the transmitter. Hello, Captain Park. This is Dr. Hannah Kim. I believe you've been looking for me. There was a long pause. Dr. Kim, you are under arrest for violation of interstellar law, destruction of alien property, and acts of war against a sovereign empire. What law says a mother can't rescue her own child? The law that prevents private citizens from attacking alien territories. You've destroyed an entire Vector facility and killed hundreds of their people. I've destroyed a biological weapons laboratory that was experimenting on children, Hannah corrected. And I have the data to prove it. Let's get transmitted. The research files she had copied from the station's computers. The data showed everything. The slave trade, the medical experiments, the biological weapons program, the planned attacks on human colonies. Captain Park's voice changed when he saw the evidence. Dear God, they were planning to wipe out entire populations. 3 colonies are already gone, Hannah said. The Vector have been testing their weapons on real settlements. This war started months ago. We just didn't know it. This changes everything, but you still can't take the law into your own hands. What law? Hannah asked. The Galactic Council has laws about warfare between civilizations. I'm not a civilization. I'm not a government. I'm not a military force. I'm just a mother who went to get her daughter back. The legal implications of what she had done were staggering. Every law about interstellar conflict assumed that wars would be fought between organized governments or military forces. No one had ever considered what would happen when a private citizen decided to fight back. You've created a diplomatic crisis, Park said. The Vector Empire is demanding justice for the attack on their facility. Let them demand, Hannah replied. Acted as a private individual recovering stolen property. I never claimed to represent Earth or any human government. According to galactic law, this is a personal matter. 2 days later, Hannah found herself standing before the full assembly of the Galactic Council. Representatives from hundreds of species filled the massive chamber, all of them staring at the human woman who had single-handedly destroyed a Vector military installation. Dr. Kim, the chief arbiter, said, his voice echoing through the chamber, "You stand accused of acts of war against the Vector Empire. How do you answer these charges?" "I deny that I committed any acts of war," Hannah replied calmly. "War is conducted between governments or military forces. I am neither. I am a civilian who recovered her stolen child and exposed a biological weapons program that threatens the entire galaxy." Ambassador came in from the Human Colonial Authority, stood to speak. "The council must consider the unique circumstances of this case. Dr. Kim acted independently of any human government. She was not following orders, carrying out policy, or representing any official organization. She was simply a mother trying to save her daughter." The Vector representative, a massive alien covered in ceremonial armor, rose from his seat. "The human destroyed our sovereign territory and killed our citizens. There must be consequences." "Your citizens," Hannah said, standing to face him, "were conducting illegal biological weapons research using children as test subjects. They were planning genocide against multiple species. I have the evidence." She activated a holographic display showing the research data from the station. The images were horrifying. Children strapped to examination tables, detailed files about biological weapons, plans for attacks on civilian populations. The chamber fell silent as the evidence played out before them. Representatives who had been ready to condemn Hannah now looked at the Vector delegation with disgust and horror. "You were experimenting on children," the chief arbiter said, his voice filled with revulsion. "The subjects were acquired legally according to our laws," the Vector representative replied. "Your laws," Ambassador Min said, "do not override the fundamental rights of sapient beings. What you did constitutes crimes against sentience." The debate that followed lasted for hours. Legal experts tried to determine whether Hannah's actions constituted an act of war or a justified rescue mission. The Vector demanded that she be punished as a war criminal. Human representatives argued that she had acted within her rights as a parent. In the end, it was the evidence that decided the case. The research data provided by Dr. Kim proves that the Vector Empire has been conducting biological weapons research in violation of 17 different galactic treaties. The chief arbiter announced, "They have used prisoners of war as test subjects, planned genocide against civilian populations, and attacked human colonies with illegal weapons." He turned to the Vector delegation. "Hamier is hereby found guilty of crimes against sentience and violations of the Biological Weapons Convention. Reparations will be paid to all affected species, and your weapons program will be dismantled under council supervision." "And what of the human who destroyed our facility?" the Vector representative demanded. The chief arbiter considered this carefully. Dr. Kim acted as a private citizen recovering stolen property. While her methods were extreme, she was not bound by the same laws that govern military actions between civilizations. Furthermore, her actions exposed crimes that threatened the security of the entire galaxy. No charges will be filed against Dr. Kim. However, new protocols will be established to prevent similar incidents in the future. The Vector representative stood abruptly. "This is unacceptable. The council is setting a dangerous precedent." "The precedent," Ambassador Min said, "is that species who experiment on children and plan genocide should expect consequences. Perhaps your empire should have considered that before taking human children." 6 months later, Hannah Kim returned to her work as a xenobiologist on the rebuilt colony of New Kepler. The children who had been rescued from the Vector station were slowly healing, both physically and emotionally. Nari had recovered completely and was back to building tree houses and asking endless questions about alien life forms. But across the galaxy, things had changed. The Victor Empire, faced with overwhelming evidence of their crimes and the threat of council intervention, had agreed to dismantle their biological weapons program and release all prisoners. Other species that had been planning similar research programs quietly abandoned their projects. Most importantly, new laws were passed establishing the rights of parents to recover their children, even across interstellar boundaries. The legislation was unofficially known as the Angry Mother Clause. "Do you ever regret what you did?" Dr. Song asked Hannah one evening as they watched the children play in the colony's new recreation. Hannah considered the question carefully. "I regret that. It was necessary. I regret that no one else was willing to act. I regret that children had to suffer while politicians debated and diplomats negotiated. But you don't regret saving them." "Never." Hannah watched Nari laugh as she played with the other children, all of them healthy and safe. "The universe has laws about war crimes between civilizations." But it learned something new that day. What's that? It learned that humans have something more powerful than laws or governments or military forces. Hannah smiled as her daughter waved at her from across the playground. "We have parents who will do anything to protect their children. Okay? And now, the galaxy knows," Dr. Song said. "Now, the galaxy knows," Hannah agreed. "And that makes everyone's children a little bit safer." In the vast darkness of space, predator species that had once seen other civilizations as easy prey now thought twice before targeting ships carrying families. They had learned a hard lesson about the fury of human parents. Some laws were written in books and treaties, but the most important law of all was written in the hearts of mothers and fathers across the galaxy. Harm our children and face the consequences. The universe would never forget the lesson of the angry human mother.